Happy Thursday morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Tropical MBA podcast, where our goal is to help you grow a profitable or a more profitable location-independent business. We are going to do exactly that today. Resources from this episode will be in the show notes and at tropicalmba.com/resources. So here's the concept. We're all thinking about the goals we can achieve next year. The question is, what is a reliable framework that we can use to set an effective plan for next year that takes just a few hours and is very simple? The genesis of this is that we do this with our DC Black members at our events. So we'll be doing something similar to this in New York City in just a few days here. And also, we do executive coaching. So the question is like when clients come to us and they're ready to set their goals for the next year, what are some of the frameworks we've walked them through? So what I'm going to do today is share with you exactly what Ian and I do to set our plans for the next year. And hopefully you can take away something from it, whether you're a solopreneur or whether you've got a large team and millions of dollars in revenue. This simple step-by-step process can help you plan for next year in just a few hours. All right, I've got 10 points to get through here. The idea here is to keep what you write down as your 2026 plan incredibly simple, incredibly effective, and very clear to all stakeholders involved. And this is doubly important if you're a lifestyle business owner who plans to maybe be less involved next year, but also reach your goals. It's possible, but we need clarity around the plan. All right, let's get started. You're sitting down. You can download this worksheet in the show notes or tropicalmba.com/resources so you can walk through it with me. The first step is simply this. What is your goal for 2026? How are you going to represent that to both you and your team? Is it a revenue goal? Is it a profitability goal? Those are going to be typically the two types of answers that a business is going to want. It is very common for founders to want to have a bunch of goals. And I am open to that. However, I believe that the best way to build a stronger business for bootstrappers is to select one simple overarching goal. And this goal will then tie together the whole rest of the system. You're going to deduce the rest of your plan from the goal. We are going to double revenue next year. We are going to maintain the same level of profitability while we do so. I'll just say what we're doing. When we set a goal, we set both a growth goal and we set a profitability goal. So top line and bottom line. That's how we do it. Is that sometimes terrifying? Because it's like, well, how am I going to do that? Well, don't worry. That's where we get to the second question. All right, so you've written down your goal. And by the way, like, you can change it because you might very well change it based on what we do next. The next step is to write down your plan to reach the goal. Now, this is where some secondary metrics will start to come into place. So the most effective way I've seen our clients develop plans is they figure out what is the most relevant challenge or opportunity or constraint, call it what you want, the one vector of opportunity that will unlock that goal. And this is where the action happens, because it's oftentimes we'll say, well, we want to grow the business by 100%. But then when we start to write down plans, the easiest way to do that might start to not look so great to us. So for a lot of businesses, for example, a plan to double revenue might look like to double the amount of sales calls you're doing. And you might be able to write a very credible plan to do that, but then realize that based on the economics of your business, that you will be the one having to do the sales calls. And so this is what we're trying to face down during this planning process. Perhaps you could hire a salesperson at that new revenue level so you could figure out the delta at which that happens. Perhaps you prefer to do marketing and you say, well, I can actually generate double the amount of leads next year. The problem is I won't be able to convert them at an effective level. Therefore, my goal to double might be too expensive to achieve next year. And this is exactly the kind of cracks in the process we are trying to figure out. So if you can't write out how you're going to do this in detail, it's not your goal, it's your hope. Okay, so we want to double revenue. We're going to do this by doubling the amount of sales calls. We can effectively do this through this means. This is how much we believe it'll cost. And these are the metrics that we are going to track in order to do that. So this is what we encourage our clients to do, to write down credible plans and to just face them down. Like, we're going to grow by 20%. We're going to keep our profitability exactly the same. Here is the credible plan to do that. And again, we can do all this in just a few hours. And the idea for me is just keeping it simple. Just like, show me your goal and write down your credible plan for doing so. Let me know some key metrics and why this is the biggest opportunity or the most efficient way to get to your goal. I'll tell you like an example of where the cracks can start to show in this process. Like last year when we were doing planning for our company, we kind of like hand waved at YouTube because we were like, well, we could get a lot more leads if we built a YouTube channel. And what we didn't really dig into in the planning was the costs of doing so. And then personally, my personal energy, honestly, I was uncomfortable with the idea of building a YouTube channel. Although in theory, it would be a credible plan to grow our business by growing a YouTube channel, we didn't capitalize that plan. Like, we didn't bring in the right team and we didn't have that founder energy that was willing to press that plan. And so here we are 12 months later with the same YouTube that we had 12 months ago. We were able to like circle back on this. Like, so within 90 days of Q1, we realized this. And so this like goal plan, and we're going to get to systems here in a minute. This is for us a 90-day cadence. So we're going to come back every 90 days and revisit the goal and the plan to unlock the path to that goal. So goal, plan with associated metrics, painfully simple, but we are trying to get it on paper. We're trying to gut check it with the smartest people we can gut check it with. That's your CFO, that's your business coach, that's your mastermind partners, that's your team members. And really determine whether you have buy-in and credibility behind the plan to unlock the goal. Just that simple. Okay, so we got our goal. We've got a credible written down plan that's attached to metrics. Now what we need to do is build systems to deploy the behaviors that the plan requires on a regular basis, that's accountable, that's measurable. And again, this can work in multi-million-dollar businesses and it can work with solo founders. The whole idea here is to keep it as simple as possible. The first system is a budget or a cash flow spreadsheet. Hopefully, if you have $1 million business, you have some kind of controller, CFO partner. The idea is we want to take the plan for growth and put it onto a forward-looking cash flow spreadsheet. So if you're a solo founder, you can imagine every month, how many deals do we need to bring in? This is beyond your books. This is your books represented in a spreadsheet that gives you visibility on what you need to be doing in order to hit those goals. So we're going to represent these goals in real financial targets on a spreadsheet. How many deals are we bringing in? What is the deal value? How many products are we selling? What months are we selling them in? What are the targets we need to be hitting in order to stay on track towards the goal? Now, some extra credit. While you're building your cash flow spreadsheet, This is an amazing time at the end of the year to do an expense audit and to do a labor efficiency ratio audit. So if you haven't yet done an LER audit, there's a bunch of different ways to do this. We have a full episode on it. Some people will take a look at their entire team and say, are they red? Are they yellow? Are they green in terms of their productivity? Can we get the team members on the profitable opportunities? Is it still a good fit? Do we need to adjust comp? Because again, like our businesses are small and moving quickly. So one of the biggest mistakes bootstrappers make is not adjusting team spend quickly enough and team focus quickly enough. What will often happen is a bootstrapper will put a team member on a non-profitable area. They will discover it. And when they discover it, they personally take the hit because they feel they made a bad call, and they try to make up for it in other ways. They'll try to solve the problem with their own energy and effort versus going to the team member and saying, look, you're on something that's not profitable. Let's collaborate together to get you back on the profit area and focus on how we both can win together. This is a common thing that will come up when you're doing a staff audit at the end of the year. It's your responsibility as a founder to make sure people are generating profit for the company. These triggers need to be coming through very quickly. For most of us, our biggest liability is our investment in team. And so as we're setting this cash flow spreadsheet, we want to understand triggers, both positive and negative. When are we staffing up and when are we staffing down? And we want to be very responsive. And, it's our responsibility as founders to the company, also to the team, to make sure that people are focused on profitable projects. So that's your LER audit, making sure you have a strong perspective on where each team member is and are they on the opportunities that bring back revenue. The other thing I'll do here during this budget meeting, and we just had this in Austin here last week, we sat down with our CFO for half a day. We looked over everything. We also want to do an expense audit. So the easiest way to make money is to save money, just to make sure that every dollar going out the door, that it has a job. And is it returning capital to your company? If you don't have a controller, this sits on your desk as the founder, and it's still critically important. So unfortunately, it's not going to be 2 to 4 hours for you. You're going to have to find some time, set aside a day, and do this work. But I think financial responsibility is highly correlated with business success. Okay, so the first system is simple. It is a cash flow spreadsheet. It is your budget for the year. You are checking in with that to make sure that you are building a financially responsible, powerful company that's very profitable. Here's the thing though, we need other systems. The reason is that you can't just toss your cash flow spreadsheet in front of your team and say, go do this. That doesn't work. It's actually disempowering. The reason is it's unclear how certain activities and behaviors in the business lead to revenue and profit. So that's where we build a scoreboard. You set a goal, you define a clear plan, you build a cash flow model with your cash flow spreadsheet that allows you to run the business effectively and well capitalized. And then you translate that whole concept into a scoreboard that a team can execute on your behalf, or you can execute if you're a solo founder. So if it is indeed the case that you need to generate twice as many sales calls, are you tracking that on a weekly basis? So for us, with the budget part, we're tracking every 30 days. With the scoreboard, we're tracking every week. So what is a scoreboard? Ryan Deiss recently published on Twitter an amazing example of a scoreboard. He mentioned in his tweet that, look, this is many businesses I've run from 1 million to 10 million with this very simple scoreboard. And it is simply looking at the very top line as your goal. And then below it, you break it down by product and you set targets for key metrics within each product that they need to be meeting every month in order to get to your goal. So we're now translating it into finance. We're translating it into marketing, into sales, into operations. What goals on a weekly basis do they need to hit? And critically, your team or yourself is manually putting in these numbers every week to represent whether we're on track, off track, or at risk. So green, yellow, red. And so you've set the flight plan now at the top. Now, every week you're checking in with your coordinates to make sure that you are progressing along the plan. Now, this scoreboard is a critical step because when we were younger and, we thought we were cool and transparent, we would simply put the budget in front of our team. And eventually our team would start to come to us and be like, I don't know how to make that number go up by 25,000 this month. Like, I actually feel empowered. I feel like I did a good job, and then we didn't hit that budget number. So that really exists on the executive's desk. The executive role is to translate it into metrics that your team can hit, like marketing qualified leads, like sales qualified leads, number of sales calls generated or taken, number of conversions made, those sorts of metrics that you believe tie tightly to your budget. And so we have been personally and internally circling the wagons on this Ryan Dice type model for quite some time. Every 6 months, we're redoing our scoreboard. So we're redoing again for 2026. The reason is that the targets change. Our perspective on which metrics correlate to our goals change. They get refined. We develop tighter relationships, and we want to continue to simplify it down for the team. We don't need to be tracking 100 things every week. We want to be tracking just the minority of things that really, really matter. For a lot of small agencies, it's going to be marketing qualified leads, sales qualified leads, sales conversion rates. We just want to keep it as simple as possible to get to the goal and to make positive actions in the company. One of the things for extra credit, every week we have this scoreboard meeting where we take a look, where we're on track, at risk. You can imagine, if you know something about Dynamite Circle, for example, event ticket sales is a big metric that we track. We want to know every week, are we on track? Are we at risk? Are we behind the ball? What do we need to do to solve that? If we don't sell the X number of tickets by X date, we know that we're not going to hit our goal and we can make adjustments. And the reason that's so powerful is on a weekly basis, we're going to know how to immediately adjust our budget so we can still hit our profitability target by the end of the year. One of the other things you can do in the scoreboard session, we like to have a company cover sheet every year that's at the top of the scoreboard meeting that has our company theme for the year. This year, our theme was simplify, focus, and execute. Next year, we're going to be moving to a leadership and speed theme, which we're defining with the team. We also have a jobs to be done framework. So what is the core job that your company does? If you have a team, it's worth reminding them every week, what do we do around here? We also have our brand promise listed on this company cover sheet. So the brand promise goes up. What do? We connect founders. How do we do it? We do it in these 3 ways. Here's the proof we do it. So we just take a look at that every week because it gets imbued into every project, every call, every piece of copy. We just want to make sure that we're all on the same page in terms of exactly what we do. Cool. Okay, so we're in the system segment now. We've got a budget. We've got a scoreboard, which the team reviews on a weekly basis. The next step is to develop scorecards. So scorecards are simply, you've got a scoreboard with areas of responsibility on it. There's a marketing person that's responsible for these key marketing metrics. We're looking every week to see if we're on track. What we want to do is translate those metrics onto a scorecard. You can catalyze meaningful conversations with the person with which that is their area of responsibility. So we've done a lot of episodes on scorecards. They're a very simple document. If you are a solopreneur, your scoreboard can stand in as your scorecard. Is not trying to make this overly complex. The concept is that you do not hire without a scorecard. So when you're thinking about, hey, I'm going to double my sales calls, at some point we're going to need to bring in a salesperson. The scorecard of that person who does not yet exist in your company is created before you even go out and hire. And so It follows then that every person on the team also has a scorecard. So they understand what the company expects from them, and vice versa. They can understand how to be successful in the company. So the scorecard is essentially your hypothesis based on your goal, based on your plan, based on your budget, based on your scoreboard, what each individual's role is in being successful in that plan. There's another opportunity again to get your biggest investment onto the profitability train, onto the plan that you have defined. Final piece, cadence. You notice the whole time we're talking about simplicity. We're talking about constraints, challenges. We're going to have to break through. So we want to keep it simple so we can do hard things. Every single step along the way, I'm talking about how often we revisit this stuff. Okay, so we're revisiting the top level goal and planning. For our size of company, we're doing it every 90 days. For a larger company, you can do it every half. Larger companies do it every year. Solopreneurs can do it every month. When do you do your scoreboard meeting? For us, it's every Friday. I would recommend for all companies looking at your scoreboard every Friday. When are you doing budgeting? When are you checking in on that cash flow spreadsheet? For us, it's every month. One cadence, extra credit cadence that we added this year, we had some tax planning challenges. So we added a 3 times a year tax planning cadence. The final piece here, budget, scoreboard, scorecards, cadence, have calendar discipline. It is freedom, actually, because I read Nassim Taleb online. And he talks about the value of a clear schedule. I agree. I like to flaneur. I like to take walks and think about things, listen to podcasts like we're doing right now. But there's a freedom to getting those key conversations on your calendar. So when is our next tax planning meeting? When is our next budgeting meeting? We do that every month. When is our next scoreboard meeting? We do that every week. And this will unlock time for you. Because if you don't have a clear plan, clear goal, and get people involved in it in effective cadences, then it actually takes a lot more time to do all this stuff. So the question for 2026 is, what is your calendar discipline? And you can always cancel meetings if they're not going to be relevant or useful. But for our team, that's going to look like a daily huddle run by our senior community manager and a weekly scoreboard meeting. And then the executive team is going to have a monthly budget meeting. And we're going to be able to use all of this information that's going to flow back up to us. We will be able to adjust every single month to make sure that we have discipline in terms of the way we are investing in the business. Because look, we could all take this money and just put it into the stock market or some other investment vehicle. So the idea is we want to circle back and make sure we're being smart about how we're investing money in our business. Okay, so to review, a goal represented in revenue and profit. I love lifestyle goals, but we're talking business today. Revenue or profit goal, a written plan designed to unlock your most direct path to that goal. So we got our goal, we got our plan, and then we're going to employ systems to keep everything on track. That's a budget, your forward-looking cash flow spreadsheet, your scoreboard, your scorecards, and your cadence. So it's just 4 things. You could actually think about it like 4 tools. It's like basically a spreadsheet. Your scoreboard is basically like a slide deck with a spreadsheet on it. Your scorecards are like a Google Doc for everybody. And your cadence is your calendar. So how cool is that? You can run a multi-million-dollar business with 4 tools. A spreadsheet, a very small slide deck, some Google Docs, and a calendar. Next step, just have like some reflection stuff here. Number 1, what are we going to stop doing? I love this. There's few things that are as powerful as electing to stop doing things. What projects are we going to cut? What expenses are we going to cut? What conversations are we going to stop having? What suppliers are we going to stop working with? Let's trim the rose bush so the beautiful flower can bloom. Most of us are just doing too many things because We see opportunities everywhere. We're trying a lot of experiments. And I think the end of the year is a great time to just delete, to simplify and focus on the few projects that we've identified that we're tracking on our scoreboard that will lead to our goal in the next year. Next reflection question. What are we going to be doing more of? One of the great things about looking at historical data is typically the answer is not going to be, I need to be doing something completely different. The answer is very often, I need to be doing more of these things that are working. I need to be doing them more effectively and faster. And so one of the things is when you get this like GPS, like very simple goals, plans, systems, and it's super clarified towards your goal, the promise is that you can speed up the cadence of your execution. So perhaps what you identify that something's working really well in the business. Maybe you used to do it once a month or once a quarter. Well, what if you could simply do it every week or every day or twice a day? These are the sorts of reflections we want to be doing at the end of 2026. It's often the case that some of the best things in our business are so good that we don't revisit them. We look at problems, try to solve problems. Well, why don't we just delete all the problems and do the things that are working really well, better and faster? Okay, two things at the end, because I want to give a little hat tip to the humanness of all of this, because this is very hardcore business. And I like the vibes of being a founder, like vibe entrepreneurship, whatever. But I do think there's extreme power in just having very simple, legible business processes at the core of what your business is doing. You can get vibey with your business cover sheet. What's our job to be done? What's our purpose? You can add a BHAG in there, right? You can add these mission statements that unite your team, that unite your customer base. You can toss all that stuff in, but none of it's going to happen if there's not a clarity around the finances and the financial engine, clarity around where everybody's going, or it's going to happen a lot slower. Or you're going to have to work a lot more to cover all the bases that these systems aren't covering for you. So those are your options. That's why we were going pretty hardcore with the business stuff. Now, with some personal reflections at the end of the year, I wrote a few here. One is just health and wellness guardrails. If we're talking about building wealth, I think it's interesting just to do a little bit of reflection about your energy levels, how you feel about your health. And specifically for me, I did a lot of thinking about this year because I'm a father now. My mindset has changed a bit around health. I want to be around for a while. And I think maybe in previous years, I would be I'm not always doing the right thing. And then I beat myself up about, man, you have no discipline or whatever. You ate out and you just ordered everything. And now you're overweight and your energy's not feeling great. And you just need to stop doing that. And this year, I really kind of opened my mind and I was maybe I should learn more. Maybe I should go on a bit of a learning journey. And there's information that I could pick up that could unlock some energy, some better sleep, some more healthfulness. And for me, that was discovering Jay Feldman. It could be any vector, but something about the way he shared his information really resonated with me and sort of flipped my mindset from this concept of I wasn't being disciplined enough to, in fact, I just had some bad information on the way that I was operating. And by starting to deploy his system in my everyday life, it's gotten a lot easier to eat healthy, to make better decisions. So I think it's interesting just to reflect a little bit on health and wellness. And the reason is none of this matters if we're not healthy and we're not alive. So might as well take a moment at the end of the year here to dig into that. What can we learn about health and wellness in the new year? For those of you who've spent time with me, I'm no ascetic angel. So it's been a long journey for me to learn about how to make gradual improvements. The final piece is just a reflection on who you've helped this year and who you can help in the new year. It could be customers, personal, family, community, church, you name it. The reason founders are bummed out when they sell their business is because they get a sense of purpose from their business because they are helping their business every day. And that's something. And I just think there's something at the core of experience that being helpful is a source of togetherness, happiness, and good feeling. And so I think it's worth asking yourself and reflecting on how much your business does help. And that vector is important. It is important to help the world in the way that you're helping it. And how can you do more of that in the next year? I think founders often are founders because they're hard on themselves. They're very conscientious. They want to do more. They feel like they're behind the ball or whatever. What we really emphasize when we meet in the DC is just, we're all right here in front of each other. Let's just help each other. Like, that is a good feeling. It is good to build community by listening, by offering honest thoughts, by sharing what's working with you, with each other. So that's a priority for me. Perhaps for you too. Okay, so here at the end, a little gut check. Because at the top, I told you about like the YouTube thing and how maybe we didn't quite have a plan. We had a bit of a hope. Like maybe Dan will just go out there on YouTube and become a YouTuber and that'll be really great for the business. And my heart wasn't really in it. So I think at the end here, once we've answered these 10 questions, we've followed the worksheet. How focused are we actually on the goals above? Do we feel like we have the personal energy to be focused on these things, say for 5 hours a day? It's a good framework. How much is that goal actually your priority? Or is it something you're hand waving in the direction of the business because you feel the business needs to grow and become more profitable? So you could write down some of your other priorities right now and ask yourself, how serious are you about doing this? Or are you just writing it down on a piece of paper? Are you going to lead the process towards the goal? And I think that's a really interesting self-reflection to do, especially for a lot of us who got in the game for lifestyle. So your options here, you can rewrite the goals that are more in line with your priorities. That's always an option. I've done a lot of coaching this year. And one of the things, not everybody, but there was certainly a minority of founders who came to me and they were just like, you know what? I don't want to grow this business. I've figured it out. Like, I'm happy with it. And in fact, what I want to do is work less. It's very common to just write down, I want to double, or I want to get to 1 million, or I want to do 20%. And I just want to give everybody space here at the end to be like, maybe you don't. Because maybe you're listening to me talk about budget, scoreboard, scorecards, cadence, moving people around, changing people's jobs. And you're just like, yeah, I actually want this business to have less of an impact on my day-to-day. And we can go back and design exactly for that. Now, because you have a cash flow spreadsheet and because you are rock solid in the way you're expressing this business on paper, it's also possible that you could task somebody else with the goal. So now that you have this clarity, you can say, well, we're actually capitalized enough for us to bring in somebody or to elevate somebody to do this on our behalf. It might not be as efficient, but because we have other priorities, we can design the business around that, maybe make a little bit less money from this particular business in the short term, free up time to take on other priorities in life, investing, or business. It's hard to do that when you haven't expressed what you believe is possible for your business on paper in this manner. In other words, you're all set up to bring in somebody now. If it turns out that you believe this business can absolutely grow 20% or 50% or 100%, but that your heart is not in it, but you still think that the business deserves it and that somebody could do it, well, now you're in a perfect position to bring that person in. We've got the goals, we've got the plans, we've got the systems, we've got the personal reflections. And at the very end, it's just like we want to revisit this and we just want to look at it from a 40,000 foot. Because I think this is the very, very human part of being an entrepreneur and a founder, is we will often know what the business needs and then not quite feel like we're the right person to do it, or we're the right person to do it right now. And so that's why I put this revisit section here at the end. We can redesign around plans that we are passionate about, We can reset our goals to unlock priorities like time or passion or purpose that we are interested in. Or we can keep the thing this badass growth machine and recruit a team who is passionate about achieving those aims. So those are the options here at the end. So cool. That's it. Let us know how you're doing your 2026 planning, what frameworks you love. There's a bunch of them. This is pretty business focused. But again, like this keeps it simple. We got a goal, we got a plan to get there, and then we just use 4 simple systems to keep it all on track. We got our budget, we got our scoreboard, we got our scorecards, and we got our cadence. Y'all know our cadence around here. Thank you for listening. We will be back with more business talk next Thursday morning.